Athens has developed this developer economics reports that really are the showcase what's in the developer's mind and what's changing in the developer ecosystem. And please welcome here Matos, who is the marketing manager for VisionMobile.
Hello, I'm Matos and I'm the marketing manager of VisionMobile. And as Jari said, I'm also a proud member of the Mobile family. So I'm one of the founding members of one of the latest charters, Mobile Monday Athens. Today, I'd like to talk about Developer Economics 101. So basically give you an idea of what developers are thinking on a global scale. So we've had many great presentations here today. Focusing on the Eastern Europe market, I believe I'd like to give a more global perspective. So before I begin, a few words about VisionMobile. We are a mobile industry analyst firm. Our core products are developer economics, which I'll present today, and telco economics, which is a series of workshops and strategic advisory services for telecom operators. We also have a quite successful analyst blog, which you can visit at visionmobile.com/blog. Our clients include some of the most well-known names in mobile today. So you'll notice tier 1 operators like Telefonica, Vodafone, and AT&T, handset manufacturers like Nokia, Sony, and RIM, as well as large chipset vendors like Qualcomm and Intel. So let's get right to it. First, I'd like to present some market figures which will help give us a background. So we've had some figures here today for the Eastern European market, which will come in handy. First, let's talk about smartphone sales penetration. So on a global scale, this is sales penetration, it's not the same as installed base. So in the third quarter of 2012, penetration grew to 40%, which means that 40% of the total mobile devices sold in the last quarter were smartphones. This is up from 30% in the year-ago quarter. So in some countries, like the US, the installed base of smartphones is actually even higher than this, so it's around 50%. We heard earlier that in Bulgaria or Hungary or Greece, the penetration, the installed base of smartphones is considerably less. So now let's take a look at the leading platforms and smartphone vendors. So in the first 3 quarters of 2012, 2 out of 3 smartphones sold were Android devices. And of course, that's a huge leap in market share for Android. It's even growing, the trend is going up. So we have, in the third quarter alone, around 70% of market share going to Android. Now, in terms of smartphone vendors, again, in the first 3 quarters, we see Samsung with a huge increase in terms of shipments of 150%. Apple as well with another 50% increase, whereas Nokia, the once leader of smartphones and mobile devices in total, has gone down by 50%. So Nokia is now not even in the top 5 smartphone vendor list. Let's take a look at specific platforms. So you'll notice here we have Android, iOS, BlackBerry, and other which is mainly Symbian. So you can see the graph starts from 2009. So you can see the progression of market share and the decline of BlackBerry and Symbian. Windows has yet to make an impact and claim just a small portion of the smartphone pie. What's not random here is the number of apps that the two leading platforms have. So each of the platforms, or each of iOS and Android, have around 700,000 apps in their native app stores. In one of our research reports, we found that the number of apps available in an app store are closely linked to smartphone shipments. So these apps generate network effects that drive smartphone sales. So Android, for example, have their own app store, and they have a highly fragmented ecosystem with dozens of other app stores that are selling Android apps. Now let's take a look at the other side of the coin, which is monetization. So in terms of profits, again, this is a timescale graph starting from 2007 and going to 2012. These are smartphone profits, and you can see that Nokia, which used to make most of the profits, has all but disappeared. Right now, Apple and Samsung claim around 97 to 98% of total profits in smartphones, and all the other players are competing for what's left. You can see, for example, RIM, which again had a large market share and a large profit share, it's on the decline. So these are the figures I wanted to present. Let's get to developer economics. So, brief intro. It is a research series by VisionMobile based on an online survey we conduct. So these are annual projects. The latest one, the 2012 one, which I'll present today, was published in June, and you can download it for free at developereconomics.com. We've got a new one coming next month, which you'll also be able to download on that URL. So let's take a look at some of the major findings. Let's talk about mobile platforms. So in this graph, you'll see the mindshare index, which is close to what we call the popularity of each platform. So it's the percentage of developers using each of these platforms. It's timed between 2010, 11, and 12, so you can see the rise and fall of the popularity of these specific platforms. So you can see that Android and iOS have, of course, been gaining ground in terms of developer mindshare, whereas other platforms like BlackBerry and Symbian have been leaking mindshare. So what makes a platform successful? According to our respondents, with a sample of around 1,500 respondents, it's not about monetization, it's mostly to do with user reach. So it makes sense that developers, of course, want to make money, but their primary concern seems to be to reach as many users as possible. So another key finding was that developers use an average of 2.7 platforms. So they can't be categorized as just Android or just iOS developers. They're multi-platform developers. So getting as many users as possible is one of the prime motivators. The notable exception here is BlackBerry, whose developers are primarily drawn to the platform because of its monetization potential. So strange as it may seem to some, our research seems to indicate that the BlackBerry platform is one of the most lucrative ones. In fact, when we ask the developers to rank their platform in terms of a series of variables, we found that the ability to generate revenues got high ranks for iOS and BlackBerry alone. Then we have Android, which did really bad in terms of monetization and revenue potential. And of course, through a series of interviews, it's easy to understand that a lot of Android developers are complaining about the platform's monetization capability. So you have fragmentation, you have numerous issues with the Android platform and its monetization potential. This is it in terms of platforms. So let's take a look at what happens with screens. So our sample was primarily mobile developers, so it stands to reason that nearly 9 in 10 develop apps for smartphones. What's perhaps surprising is that around half of our sample were doing apps for tablets, so tablets have entered the mainstream. It's also worth noting that feature phones still have a high percentage of developers who are willing to do apps for them, and of course it's understandable considering that the installed base of feature phone far outweighs that of smartphones. Also, we should take a look at the very, very small, just under 10% number of developers who are doing TV apps. So we have a huge buzz around smart TVs and the cross-screen experience, but it's still undeveloped. So we expect that percentage to grow in the next couple of years, but right now it's at a very early stage. Now I'd like to talk about monetization, so perhaps what's most important for developers out there. In the next slides, I'm going to present an average revenue per app per month. So this is across our sample. And it should give the developers in the audience an indication of where they should head. So one of the most surprising findings was that commissioned apps produce 3 times as much revenues as non-commissioned apps. So those developers who are working for a client or work for a salary seem to make considerably more money than the developers who are not. Of course, that's also to do with the industry that the client is in. So at the very top with a small percentage of revenues, you'll find software and IT services and games, whereas banking and finance apps and real estate are the highest paying. Of course, that's got to do with the concentration of developers in each segment. So you should consider the competition. For example, in games, you would expect perhaps a higher number of revenues there. In a recent report, I read that 25 developers took up 50% of the revenues from the US App Store for iOS and Android. So you have a very small percentage of developers who make most of the money, and then you have a huge long tail who are just about breaking even or not even that. So perhaps a good indication of where you should be heading if you're a developer. Also, another factor you should consider is how much time and effort you should put into it. We found that the more a developer spends actively doing their app and developing their app, the more likely their revenues will increase. Of course, this differs between iOS and Android shows considerably less revenues than iOS. I'd now like to briefly mention the upcoming developer economics reports. With the online surveys closed, we had a sample of nearly 3,500 developers. The sample is global, so we had the survey translated into 6 languages, hoping to get a representative sample across regions and across countries. This report also examines developer tools, so we were very keen on seeing the developer tools market and how it's been shaping out. So this is the only graph I can share, right now as we're crunching the numbers. You can see the tool sectors we selected for the survey and the relative popularity. So you can see that ad networks and user analytics are the most popular sectors for developers, whereas voice services is the least popular. Of course, that varies greatly by platform. As you can see in the graph, each of the different colors represents a different platform. You'll find more information on our newly launched developer portal, which you can find on build.developereconomics.com. The idea is to provide developers with the right tools and the right information and strategy tips, as well as article and research that will help them grow their business and help them in all stages of development, which is not just planning and developing, but it's also marketing, which is a major pain point for a lot of developers out there. So we're still in beta, so we appreciate your feedback, and please be gentle, because we're still working on it. Okay, this is it. I'm Matos, and you can find me at matos@visionmobile.com for any questions you might have. I'll be posting the presentation on SlideShare, so please give me a shout if you need interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matos, and I think that was very relevant finish to the morning session. Did you share some of the information about the cost of developing to the different platforms? Because you shared the revenue generated on average, but on the cost and the revenue share, how do you rate that?
Yeah, we also, the report which is available for download also includes the costs, and it's a bleak picture. But you have to understand that, of course, we took a large sample, so the average might not be relevant to a specific group of developers, such as freelancers or such as startups, small startups. But in every conversation I've had with a developer, from a high-paid salary developer to a freelancer, it seems that it's difficult to make money. So monetization is a major issue for developers.
So that's like the education was interesting. It was much better ROI on developing apps for education than games, for example. That means that
yes.
You have a paying customer that you're actually developing with, and it pays better than doing something cool and fun than developing games.
It's also, of course, a matter of an oversaturated market. So you have a huge number of games in every single app store, whereas other types of apps are less common, and it's also they're also addressed to different audience. So they're addressed to an audience that are more likely to pay. For example, that's one of the major gains of the BlackBerry platform. So they have an enterprise segment who's more likely to pay money for apps.
And I think that's really relevant. I think I heard the figure that over 300 games are uploaded every day. And for a developer, how do you make the difference? How do you market your game? And I think we have, of course, the interesting example from Finland, the Angry Birds, really being able to launch it globally. And I think it has 3 success factors. It's engaging game, but they knew the markets globally. They were able to engage the communities in the smallest markets in Europe to actually download the game. I think they even brought the Mobile Monday communities in Estonia and Sweden and Finland to download, pay for the downloads, and suddenly they were number 1 download game in 5 countries, and then they got the traction. And also being able to adapt to different markets through the Mobile Monday community and knowing your competitors. That's really the core, because they could not scale in Finland fast enough. They needed to subcontract from the best game developers in Finland that were their most feared competition. And I think that's really the essence, that you can scale faster and more efficiently if you know your competitors and you can work with them if you really need to scale fast.
Well, yeah, of course, there's a recipe to getting enough right, and even then it might not be easy. So considering that out of those 25 developers who are making all the money in the US app stores, 24 were games developers, and all of them were not just random developers, they were Zynga, there were EA Games, there were Rovio. So it's the big guys that are making most of the money.
All right, thank you. And we'll have a 15-minute coffee break, and we'll return for a panel discussion and then for the afternoon program. Thank you.